Okay, we've got breaking developments coming in. Times Now news break has been confirmed. The Prime Minister has talked tough with the Canadian Prime Minister on the Khalistan issue and has raised strong concerns about anti-India activities taking place in his country. Remember, over the recent past, there have been several incidents where Khalistani hooligans have either indulged in vandalism or even issued threat, including a Khalistani referendum being conducted in Canada. Rishabh, it's over to you for more details.
Well, definitely, as we have been talking, that the Prime Minister has raised the issue of Khalistan with the Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, the Canadian Prime Minister, who was here and met on the sidelines of G20. Prime Minister straightforward put the concerns of India and have said that the attacks on diplomatic properties, the attacks on diplomats, and the way Indian community is being harassed by the Khalistani extremists in Canada is something that is a reason of concern, and that should not happen. There can be rule of law and freedom of expression, but anything that is anti-India, against India's sovereignty and integrity, cannot be tolerated. In the strongest word, Prime Minister has put it forward to Canada that what's happening in Canada is not acceptable to India.
Right. In fact, Rishabh, we've also accessed the detailed statement that has been issued after this bilateral. Kitty, it's over to you for the highlights.
Yes, Priya, it's a strongly worded statement now that has been issued. What Times Now had broken earlier has now been confirmed through the statement that has been released. In this statement, it said Prime Minister Modi highlighted that India-Canada relations are anchored in shared democratic values, respect for rule of law and strong people-to-people ties. He's also conveyed our strong concerns about continuing anti-India activities of extremist elements in Canada. This has been specially emphasized here, and this has been talked about in the meeting between Prime Minister Modi and Prime Minister Trudeau. They are promoting secessionism. Words like secessionism, inciting violence against Indian diplomats and damaging diplomatic premises have also been used, and threatening the Indian community in Canada and their places of worship. The nexus of such forces with organized crime, drug syndicates and human trafficking should be a concern for Canada as well. This is what has been conveyed by Prime Minister Modi to the Canadian PM. It is essential now for the two countries to cooperate in dealing with such threats. It's also said that Prime Minister Modi has also mentioned this to Trudeau, that a relationship based on mutual respect as well as trust is essential for the progress of India-Canada relationship.
Right, an unequivocal statement of intent there coming in from India, spelled out clearly by the Prime Minister. Unlike the Prime Minister of Canada, Justin Trudeau, who seemed to be mincing his words on the matter. Listen into what he said earlier.
Two issues you didn't mention. One that has been reported by the Indian media, quoting Indian government sources who say Prime Minister Modi spoke to you about the presence, in his terms, of Sikh Khalistani militants in Canada. And the second is the question of interference in Canada by India, which has been cited by Canada's own intelligence agencies. Did neither of those topics come up?
No, they both came up over the years with Prime Minister Modi. We've had many conversations on both of those issues. Obviously, Canada will always defend freedom of expression, freedom of conscience, freedom of peaceful protest. That's something that's extremely important to us. At the same time, as we're always there to prevent violence, to push back against hatred. I think on the issue of the community, it's important to remember that the actions of the few do not represent the entire community or Canada. The flip side of it, we also highlighted the importance of respecting the rule of law, and we did talk about foreign interference.
Joining me on the broadcast are Dr. Anand Ranganathan, who is an author, and Kailash Adhikari, MD of Governance. Now, Dr. Anand Ranganathan, a pretty unequivocal statement coming in from the Prime Minister of India. The relationship is based on mutual respect.
No, absolutely. Good evening. And I think this kind of hard-hitting dialogue is the need of the hour. Let's remember that the Khalistani elements undoubtedly have found refuge lately, increasingly over the years, and especially in the last 4 or 5 years, in Canada. And it's not in the least because of the government there. I think, short of encouraging such nefarious elements, and for them to perpetrate something directly or indirectly, I would say direct violence in Punjab, is a clear message that our Prime Minister needed to give. You remember, I think hardly 4 or 5 months ago, they held a kind of a procession where a kind of a montage of, Mrs. Indira Gandhi, our ex-Prime Minister, and you had a few Khalistanis dressed up, and they were actually, showering her with bullets. That was the kind of a jhanki, if I may call it, that actually tableau that went through the streets. Absolutely despicable. And this had to be condemned at the highest level, and I'm absolutely delighted that the Prime Minister has had harsh word with this Canadian Rahul Gandhi.
Right, and what Justin Trudeau tried to defend as the right to free speech and peaceful protest, Kailash Adhikari, was actually including threats to Indian envoys at the High Commission in Canada itself.
I believe that India has taken a very positive and a tough stand, and this is the India of this 20th century. And Honorable Prime Minister Modi has given a clear-cut message that no atrocities against the Indian communities on Canadian soil will be tolerated. What the Canadian Prime Minister has done is definitely trying to take homage or shelter under free speech, but India's stand will be tough. And what India has shown in terms of a clear messaging that it won't tolerate any such kind of atrocities happening on foreign soil. And diplomatically, India as a strong nation, 20% of the world, will definitely take a strong stand. And G20 was a perfect, I would say, a summit or a platform where in the bilateral talks between India and Canada that India could have raised this issue.
Right. So that was as far as the international politics is concerned. India has been ensuring that it does not cede ground when it comes to putting its own priorities first. And the signs have been diplomatically sent, whether in a veiled way or directly to Canada, throughout this G20 summit so far. But when it comes to the politics, even as the curtains come down on the two-day mega G20 summit, global heavyweights have been calling it unprecedented, path-breaking, as well as historic. Endorsements have been pouring in from all across for what is being dubbed as great success for India's presidency. But the opposition leaders back home remain consistently unimpressed. Even before the visiting dignitaries could depart, opposition started looking for ways to show the Modi government down and found an opportunity after overnight rains flooded the open area outside the grand summit venue, the Bharat Mandapam. Taking to social media, several Congress leaders pointed out that the 2,700 crore rupees worth Bharat Mandapam building had gone to waste and that BJP's claims of progress were hollow.
आज सुबह तो मैंने देखा कि इनके G20 जब हो रहा था तो बारिश आई और सारा जितना भी वो जहां पे वो G20 की मीटिंग रख रहे हैं उसमें सारा पानी फैल गया है। मेरे मन में एक बात आई कि शायद जो हमारे देशवासी डर के मारे कह नहीं पा रहे, भगवान ने कह दिया कि अपना अहंकार कम करो, अपना अहंकार कम करो। इस देश ने तुम्हें बनाया है, इस देश ने नेता बनाया है, इस देश को आगे रखो, इस देश की जनता को सर्वोपरि बनाओ।
Soon, others from India Alliance also chimed in, and that included the Aam Aadmi Party and the DMK. However, Press Information Bureau's fact-checking wing said that the claims were exaggerated and misleading, stating that the area was cleared within 20 minutes. And when it wasn't about water, it became about food. But first, let's get you the political face-off over the Mandapam issue.
क्या G20 पे राजनीति की जा सकती है? क्या इस पे इलेक्शन कैंपेन का एक हिस्सा बनाया जा सकता है? G20 के जीरो पे कमल का फूल बनाया हुआ है। वेन्यू के अंदर जो पानी जहां पे दिखाया गया है वहां पे आर्टिफिशियल कमल के फूल बीजेपी के निशान तैरते नजर आ रहे हैं। बहुत अफसोस की बात है कि G20 को भी भारतीय जनता पार्टी और हमारे प्रधानमंत्री ने इलेक्शन कैंपेन का हिस्सा बना दिया है।
Every standards, G20 is a success. The world is acknowledging it. India has seen what a success it is. But then certain opposition parties have an agenda of negativity. They don't see anything positive. They will only build a narrative based on criticizing and trying to find fault unnecessarily to run down even a success that India and Indians are celebrating.
Right. So even on an occasion like this, where the event is organized by the government of India, the opposition seems to be more keen on finding flaws. Is that becoming of a responsible opposition in India? To understand that question, we are now joined by Dr. Anand Ranganathan. Kailash Adhikari also stays with us, but joining us now are Ashutosh Mishra, who's a senior journalist, and Huda Jariwala, who's a political analyst. Huda Jariwala, the bilaterals were still underway. There were international dignitaries who had been acknowledging one after the other how there had been momentous progress at this summit. One thing after the other, achievements that hadn't happened before. But the opposition and Congress was more keen on pointing out flooding.
Well, good evening. As far as the success of G20 is concerned, it is a credit to everybody associated in it, and it should not be made political. The success is not just about the Prime Minister Modi, as it had been, as it is made right now. And also, let us not forget how the arrangements of this mandapam took place. I mean, the Garib Bastiyan were being hidden, they were being curtained to create an entire setup for the G20, which is fine. But then, environmental constraints should have been taken into consideration.
Wait. You're taking this everywhere except the pointed question. The claims, the videos that were circulated by everyone from the Congress party's official handle to B.V. Srinivas, to Randeep Surjewala, to Pawan Khera was eventually fact-checked. Let's just stick to one issue at a time. We'll come to others.
All right. Okay. So was the G20 entirely about the Prime Minister Modi? We're not.
Ma'am, that's not my question. My question is, why would you choose? I would have still understood if you criticized a policy decision, that this is not a stand India would have taken. All you could find to criticize was that the Bharat Mandapam was waterlogged, which wasn't even the right fact.
Well, apparently those are what the videos have suggested. Those are what the ground reports have suggested. But then
which
also,
ground report, ma'am?
The reports were the waterlogging videos. I mean, there has to be some amount of truth to it. The delegates did face constraints. They did
How do you know
face
that?
Actual issues.
How do you know that? How does Congress know that? Did anybody tweet about it?
Well, absolutely. There have been tweets about a minister from Aam Aadmi Party, several leaders from the Congress Party.
No, but they were not present there. Did Mr. Sukhu say something about the problems faced due to waterlogging, since he was the Congress CM present?
Well, the fact that it had come to a point where they had to spend a good 20 minutes clearing the water that was logged. Clearly, there was a problem in the drainage system.
Okay.
Clearly, Modi is all about the optics and the, the marketing dynamics.
Dr. Anand Ranganathan, 3,000 crore rupee worth building, and still 20 minutes it took to clear waterlogged venue.
3,000 crores was the budget allocated, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, ma'am, we've got your point.
Hudaji, I did not interrupt. It's been a pleasure to be on the same panel. Please allow me a couple of we have to realize the fact that has been the case over the last, certainly, if not 10 years, at least 5 or 6 years, which is that hatred for Modi has now transmogrified into a hatred for Hinduism, and now worryingly so hatred for India. Everything that this country does or has achieved under Modi, under BJP, under any BJP government is to be hated. And, your clip itself showed I would say, derisively, Ms. Priyanka Gandhi saying कि भगवान ने punish कर दिया, बारिश दे दी, अहंकार, ये कैसी बातें हो रही हैं? And one of the Congress leaders is saying कि G20 में आपने BJP के election चिन्ह के निशान लगा. अरे भाई, lotus is our national flower. Tomorrow you will say, do not do this. हाथ काट दोगे कांग्रेस का. Please don't interrupt. Please. कल को tomorrow he will say you're not allowed to do this. Swamijis are not allowed to do it because that is a Congress symbol. Tomorrow they will say Lotus Temple is BJP office. Where is this all heading? And these are the same people. And I do agree with Hudaji. One thing that she said is all politicians cutting across party lines must mend their ways. This kind of covering up the slums with these, cloth and everything, I think gives a very bad impression, because those are humans, these are our people, and it should not have been done. But the fact of the matter is that the Congress did it during the Commonwealth Games, the AAP does it routinely, BJP does it, all politicians do it, and it's just a bad political habit. It should be condemned across board. But then hypocrisy comes in when you do it.
Let's not forget.
This is the third time.
Entirely covered.
Ms. Zariwala, let him finish his point.
A wall built for the president.
This is the third time you are interrupting.
Ms. Zariwala, please let him finish his point. You got your uninterrupted time. We'll come back to you.
Sure.
Yeah,
well,
thank you very much. Please.
It wasn't uninterrupted.
No, please. This.
I was interrupted time and again. So I should be allowed similar time as Dr. Ranganathan. That's just I could expect.
I have taken a fraction of the time you had taken, and my time has been constantly interrupted by you. Hudaji, come on. It's a weekend. Let's celebrate. India has had a...
Please continue.
Yes, and I'm sure that, you will put political differences aside and congratulate this government, especially Mr. Modi, for holding a very successful, possibly one of the most successful G20 summits. I want to hear from your mouth. Would you congratulate Narendra Modi right now? Please do it.
I believe I started with that. I started about G20 being a success, but why has it been
congratulate Narendra Modi? Congratulate your Prime Minister?
Was it just the Prime Minister Modi who
No, it wasn't. But can you please congratulate him?
Were the bureaucrats not involved? Was the media not involved?
This is the problem.
The protocol.
This is the problem.
And
this is the issue.
And thousands of other people on
if the AAP government does something good, they will say congratulations to everyone, and also to, I can't continue like this. I don't know what has happened to Hudaji. She was never like this. I think it's just possibly she's going to become a Rajya Sabha MP from AAP. That's why she's becoming like this, constantly interrupting. Hudaji, please don't do it.
But that's...
Okay, let's open this up.
Right now, but
yes, Mr. Mishra, do you think it is nitpicking, or do you think these are valid concerns being raised by a party that truly cares for country's image?
No, we are confusing 2 points here. First of all, the success of G20 as an international summit, where many of the things for which the government has been congratulated internationally, and there were many things that were in the pipeline, like African Union was in the line to join G20 for 7 years. Biden last year proposed it, and now it has joined it. It's a matter of success for India. It's a matter of pride for us also that it has happened. As the Prime Minister needs to be congratulated for his successful conduct of G20. But then he also needs to be ready to take brickbats for the shortcomings. The shortcomings have been pointed out, and as you yourself would have seen, PIB has fact-checked this, and it has accepted that there was some waterlogging. Now, whether it was blown out of proportion or not is something for us to debate. But the thing is that something happened, and somebody, obviously, the opposition parties are not going to miss a point to point out the failures, because BJP went out of the way to ensure that the local Aam Aadmi Party didn't have a part to play in G20. So it has now to take the responsibility, and whenever there are any shortcomings, even if it was for 20 minutes or whatever, waterlogging, which has been accepted by the PIB, by the way, it has to accept its mistakes. And when we come to policies, we'll point out how the duplicitous policies have been. For example, let's take the motto of this G20.
All right.
What was the motto? One Earth, one family. Okay. But it seems at the local level, when it comes to India, and only one family that the Prime Minister promotes.
Sir, it's very interesting that you talk about one family, and I'm unfortunately running out of time because we are standing by for Prime Minister to come out and address media anytime now. One last question to you, Kailash Adhikari. Talking of family, the invites were sent out for dinners. There were 2 Congress chief ministers who said they weren't attending because there were flight issues, but there were several from the India family, the opposition's alliance, who were actually seen present, and surprisingly there was one from Congress itself, Sukhu. What kind of messaging is that?
Just one point. Arvind Kejriwalji was...
I think the question was
Ms.
addressed to me.
That question was for Mr. Adhikari.
The question was addressed to me.
Yes,
Firstly,
please.
I pity the Congress party, and I think they are so baffled by their political irrelevance that they are now finding faults in an international event which was hosted by Bharat, and so successfully that the New Delhi resolution has been adopted. We have seen Mamata Banerjee, TMC, Nitish Kumar, Jharkhand Mukti Morcha Chief, Hemant Soren, NK Stalin, they are all political opponents of the Bharatiya Janata Party, but they were there. They were there to celebrate the spirit of India and the success that India has got during its G20 presidency this particular year. Right from multilateral development banks to the inclusion of the African Union as a permanent member. The New Delhi resolution has been adopted and it has been so successful, and we must applaud our government. And as true citizens of Bharat, we must be proud and nothing else.
Right.
And I
sometimes while it is the opposition's responsibility to point out flaws, to criticize those in power, the difference should be made in an event that is a country's event and what happens at the party level when it comes to the political sphere. But unfortunately, I've completely run out of time. Thank you, gentlemen. Uda Zariwala for joining me. We take a very quick break. We'll be back. Prime Minister is supposed to speak anytime now.